Hi, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I'm glad to be back with you. I have my kitty with me. I'll show you. She's grown so much. Do any of you remember Gracie? Yeah, she's so sweet. Well, like I said, it's the very last chapter in our book. We're in chapter 33 of The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Christmas in May. Pa brought groceries that afternoon. It was wonderful to see him coming in with armfuls of packages. Wonderful to see a whole sack of white flour, sugar, dried apple, soda crackers, and cheese. The kerosene can was filled. Oh, how happy Laura was to fill the lamp, polish the chimney, and trim the wick. At supper time, the light shone through the clear glass onto the red checkered tablecloth and the white biscuits, the warmed up potatoes, and the platter of fried salt pork. She's so crazy. With yeast cakes, Ma set a sponge for light bread that night, and she put dried apples to soak for pies. Laura did not need to be called the next morning. She was up at dawn, and all day she helped Ma bake and boil the good things for next day's Christmas dinner. Early that morning, Ma added water and flour to the bread sponge. Remember, that was a sourdough, and set it to rise again. Laura and Carrie picked over the cranberries and washed them. Ma stewed them with sugar until they were a mass of crimson jelly. We call that cranberry sauce. Laura and Carrie picked carefully dried raisins from their long stems and carefully took the seeds out of each one. Wow, that's a lot of work. Now we usually get raisins. They're not on their stems and they don't have seeds in them. Ma stewed the dried apple, mixed them with raisins, and then made pies. It seems strange to have everything that one could want to work with, Ma said. Now I have cream of tartar and plenty of salcatras. I shall make a cake. All day long the kitchen smelled of good things, and when night came, the cupboard held large brown loaves of crusted white bread, a sugar-frosted loaf of cake, 3 crisp crusted pies, and the jellied cranberries. I wish we could eat them now, Mary said. Seems like I just can't even wait till tomorrow. I'm waiting for the turkey first, said Laura. And you may have sage in the stuffing, Mary. She sounded generous, but Mary laughed at her. That's only because there aren't any onions to use. Now, girls, don't get impatient, Ma begged them. We will have a loaf of light bread and some of the cranberry sauce for supper. So Christmas feasting was begun the night before. It seemed too bad to lose any of that happy time in sleep. Still, sleeping was the quickest way to tomorrow morning. It was no time at all after Laura's closed her eyes till Ma was calling her, and tomorrow was today. What a hurrying there was. Breakfast was soon over, and while Laura and Carrie cleared the table and washed the dishes, Ma prepared the big turkey for roasting and mixed the bread stuffing for it. The May morning was warm and the wind from the prairie smelled of springtime. Doors were open and both rooms could be used once more. Going in and out of the large front room where she wanted to give Laura a spacious and rested feeling, as if she would never be cross again. That means grumpy. Ma had already put the rocking chairs by the front windows to get them out of the way of the kitchen. Now the turkey was in the oven, and Mary helped Laura draw the table into the middle of the front room. Mary raised its drop leaves. Now, have you ever seen a drop leaf table? I have one. So I'll explain it to you. It's like this is the table, but on the side, there are leaves that go down, and you can bring them up, and then the table is wider. That's kind of a poor description, but both they'll drop down or come out. So it makes a bigger table. And they spread smoothly over it a white tablecloth that Laura brought her. Then Laura brought the dishes from the cupboard, and Mary placed them around the table. Carrie was peeling potatoes, and Grace was running races with herself the length of both rooms. Ma brought the glass bowl filled with glowing cranberry sauce. She set it in the middle of the white tablecloth, and they all admired the effect. It looked so pretty. We do need some butter to go with the light bread, though, Ma said. Never mind, Carolyn, Pa said. There's tar paper in the lumber yard now. I'll soon mix up a shanty, and we'll be able to move out into the homestead in just a few days. The roasting turkey was filling the house with scents that made their mouth water. It smelled good. The potatoes were boiling, and Ma was putting the coffee on when Mr. and Mrs. Bose came walking in. For the last mile I've been following my nose to that turkey, Mrs. Bose declared. I was thinking more of seeing folks, Robert, than of anything to eat. Mrs. Bose chided him. She was thin, and the lovely rosy color was gone from her cheeks. But she was the same darling Mrs. Bose, with the same laughing black-fringed blue eyes and the same dark hair curling under the same brown hood. She shook hands warmly with Ma and Mary and Laura, and stooped down to draw Carrie and Grace close in her arms as she spoke to them. Come into the front room and take your things off, Mrs. Bose, Ma urged her. It's good to see you again after so long. Now you rest in the rocking chair and visit with Mary while I finish up dinner. Let me help you, Mrs. Bose asked, but Ma said she must be tired after the long walk, and everything was nearly ready. Laura and I will soon have dinner on the table, said Ma, turning quickly back to the kitchen. She ran against Pa in her haste. She bumped him. We better make ourselves scarce, Bose, said Pa. Come along and I'll show you the Pioneer Press I got this morning. It'll be good to see a newspaper again, Mr. Bose agreed eagerly. So the kitchen was left to the cooks. Get the big platter to put the turkey on, Ma said as she lifted the heavy, dripping pan out of the oven. That's where the juice from the turkey would drip down. Laura turned to the cupboard and saw on the shelf a package that had not been there before. What's that, Ma? She asked. I don't know. Look and see, Ma told her, and Laura undid the paper. There on a small plate was a ball of butter. Butter! It's butter! She almost shouted. They heard Mrs. Bose laugh. Just a little Christmas present, she called. Pa and Mary and Carrie exclaimed aloud in delight, and Grace squealed long and shrill while Laura carried the butter to the table. Then she hurried back to slide the big platter carefully beneath the turkey as Ma raised it from the dripping pan. While Ma made gravy, Laura mashed potatoes. There was no milk, but Ma said, leave a little of the boiling water in it, and after you mash them, beat them extra hard with the big spoon. The potatoes turned out white and fluffy, though not quite as the flavor that plenty of hot milk and butter would have given them. Then all the chairs were drawn up to the well-filled table. Drawn up means pulled up. Ma looked at Pa, and every head bowed. Lord, we thank thee for thy bounty. That was all that Pa said, but it seemed to say everything. In case you don't know what some of those words mean, Lord, we thank you. So that's thanking God for what they have. For all thy bounty. Bounty means more than enough. And they had more than enough on that table with all that wonderful food. The table looks some different from what it did a few days ago, Pa said as he heaped Mrs. Boast's plate with turkey and stuffing and potatoes and a large spoonful of cranberries. And as he went on filling the plates, he added, "It's been a long winter." "And a hard one," Mr. Boast said. "It's a wonder how we all kept well and came through it," Mrs. Boast said. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Boast told how they had worked and contrived through that long winter, how they made do. All alone in the blizzard-bound shanty on their claim, Ma poured the coffee and Pa's tea. She passed the bread and the butter and the gravy and reminded Pa to refill the plates. When every plate had been emptied a second time, Ma refilled the cups and Laura brought in the pies and the cake. They sat a long time at the table, talking of the winter that was past and the summer to come. Ma said she could hardly wait to get back out to the homestead. The wet, muddy roads were the difficulty now, but Pa and Mr. Boast agreed they would dry out before long. The Boasts were glad that they had wintered on their claim and didn't have to move back in now. At last they all left the table. Laura brought the red bordered table cover, and Carrie helped her spread it to cover nearly out of sight the food and the empty dishes. Oh, they just covered them right up. Then they joined the others by the sunny window. Pa stretched his arms above his head. He opened and closed his hands and stretched his fingers wide and then ran them through his hair. "I believe this warm weather has taken the stiffness out of my fingers," he said. "If you will bring me the fiddle, Laura, I'll see what I can do." Laura brought the fiddle box and stood close by while Pa lifted the fiddle out of its nest. He thumbed the strings and tightened the keys as he listened. Then he roseaed the bow and drew it across the strings. A few clear, true notes sounded soft. The lump in Laura's throat almost choked her. She was so happy. Pa played a few bars and said, "This is a new song I learned last fall when we went to Volga to clear the tracks. You hum the tenor along with the fiddle, Boast, while I sing it through the first time, a few times over, and you'll pick up all the words." They gathered around him and listened while he played again the opening bars. Then Mr. Boast's tenor joined Pa's fiddle and Pa's voice singing. Now I'm going to try to sing this song, but I don't really know how it goes. "This life is a difficult riddle, for how many people we see with faces as long as a fiddle that ought to be shining with glee. I'm sure in this world there are plenty of good things enough for us all, and yet there's not one out of 20 but thinks that his share is too small. Then what is the use of repining? For where there's a will, there's a way, and tomorrow the sun may be shining, although it is cloudy today. Do you think that by sitting and sighing you'll ever obtain all you want? It's cowards alone who are crying and foolishly saying, 'I can't.' It's only by plodding and striving and laboring up the steep hill of life that you'll ever be thriving, which you will if only you will. Wow, that's a beautiful song. They were all humming the melody now, and when the chorus came again, Mr. Bo's alto and Ma's contralto and Mary's sweet soprano joined Mr. Bo's tenor and Pa's rich bass, singing the words, and Laura sang too, soprano. Then what is the use of repining? For where there's a will, there's a way, and tomorrow the sun may be shining, although it is cloudy today. And as they sang, the fear and the suffering of the long winter seemed to rise like a dark cloud and float away with the music. Spring had come. The sun was shining warm, the winds were soft, and the green grass was growing. Picture of Laura. Well, I hope you enjoyed that story. And I'm going to be deciding if I'm going to continue reading in this series or if I'll just tell you the next books that are coming on. Let's see, I could do that. And you could look them up yourself. There is a book called Little Town on the Prairie. And then there's another one, These Happy Golden Years. And the last one, The First 4 Years. Now, all of these are when Laura is a young adult and probably a not so young adult. So I will make the decision. If you'd like to, you can leave a message and tell me, do you want me to read another story on this series or just pick out a new book? Well, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead. I want to pray blessings on you and yours, in your house and out of your house, in the day and the night. Whatever you do, keep dreaming. Good night. God bless you.